going the distance with local sports. This is the xSports Network.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
Welcome in, everybody. We have an amazing guest stars here this evening. We have Jack Davis, Johnny Lyles, and Jonathon Weathers. We're going to be talking about the history of Lawrence County sports, and we just have so many things that we're able to talk about here. We've literally have legends that are out here in the sports desk. So let's go ahead and just kind of start things off here. Let's start off with kind of the early years with y'all specifically going through, whether it's Babe Ruth, football, kind of just growing up in Lawrence County.
Going back all the way back to my Little League years with a great coach by the name of Manny Layton. Manny, I was 12 years old before I lost a Little League baseball game. So my 9, 10, and 11-year-old, we didn't lose a game. Now, a lot of that had to do with Jim Thompson being our pitcher. But we didn't lose a game till I was 12, and Jim had already gone into Babe Ruth. But great guys like that who came through the Little League ranks, teaching and coaching these kids, making baseball what it is in Lawrence County today. We had a lot of great young folks that participated in baseball that year. Steve Cohn, all these guys were just tremendous athletes and not bad baseball players either.
Yeah. Jack, anything with you?
Yeah, I think, Randall, I remember him, and I was in Little League, he pitched, in Little League, the team we were playing they were like neck and neck, and Randall was throwing and hurt his arm somehow, and had to take him out of the game, and actually, they did surgery on him, but when they took him out, everything fell apart, I think Mark Lindsay pitched some, and anybody could throw one through some, but the score went from 0 to 20 in no time. So, but I remember Randall as being a wonderful pitcher in Little League. One of the best.
Well, I grew up in a little old town south of here, St. Joe, Tennessee, and I wasn't as fortunate as these guys living in the big city of Lawrenceburg. I didn't have all the facilities, so we had to make do down there. But we played all the time, and we had some great coaches down there. One of them was Shorty Hurst. I don't know if y'all ever remember Shorty.
Yes.
And I played with all them, and then as I got older in the 60s, I was developing into fairly, I guess, decent baseball player. They got me out of Lawrenceburg to come up and play with their American Legion team. Now, you talking about legends on that league. You all remember that Legion team?
Yes.
Puddenspan, Larry Gongor. Hey, I mean, we had some great ball team. Had a great ball.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So
good athletes.
Very good.
Puddin', he died early. And
The fire, wasn't it?
Yeah, he died in the fire. But, boy, he was one of the best shortstops that ever come out of Lawrenceburg, Tennessee now. I'm telling you, he could pick it.
Yeah. Well, I heard that Babe Ruth was it not in Lawrenceburg? Y'all had to kind of go, was it to Columbia or somewhere around here? Like Babe Ruth.
That's kind of American Legion.
Or American Legion?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was American
We
Legion.
started
American
our
Legion.
own Babe Ruth program here in Lawrenceburg.
So it was the American Legion y'all were a part of first, and y'all didn't have Babe Ruth here.
Right.
But go through the process of being able to bring Babe Ruth here, because I know, was it you that was that brought Babe Ruth here?
No.
No, it wasn't you. It
No.
was
I think it was Bobby.
Bobby Alford.
Bobby Alford.
it was
Bobby
Bobby.
Alford.
Okay.
Bobby Alford was instrumental in that, as well as Bobby Brewer. Some of those
It
guys.
started with Little League.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Little League and then Babe Ruth.
Coach
and
Staggs actually brought Little League to
Little League,
Lawrenceburg.
yeah.
Coach Staggs, Coach Leonard Staggs brought Little League to Lawrenceburg.
Yeah.
Because he knew that if he could develop those kids and give them something to do in the summer, then he could have them ready to go in the fall.
Yeah.
They'd be in a little better shape for fall, and they wouldn't be sitting around the house all the time and playing
Yeah.
summer league baseball. Then they'd be ready for fall football when Coach Staggs got ready for them.
Yeah. That's what I heard. I believe. Yeah, you told me Coach Staggs was the one that brought it.
Hey, if you go back and if you look at the history of Lawrence County, they've had some good baseball players now. I'm telling you, they've had a lot of guys go pro, but you didn't have to go pro. Could be great because you can be pretty good in
Yeah.
Lawrence County, and then when you get out of Lawrence County to go pro,
Yes.
you're just a little small chicken and a cook.
Coach Stagg wasn't, he was pretty smart by doing that, Not only was he helping the kids, he was
himself.
recruiting for his high school football team. So at a young age, he was watching his kids grow up as they were playing ball. He would go to all the little league games, Babe Ruth, and he seen these kids come up, and and when they got to high school, he said, "You can get out of study hall. You need to be on the football field." So that's one of the reasons that Coach Staggs and that bunch have done so well.
Yep. What about Coach Staggs, just as a coach? Talk about some of his games as a coach, because I've heard Staggs. I believe it was Coach Fox. Just talk about some of the coaches that really helped to shape not only y'all's lives, but many other lives here in Lawrence County.
Jackie, you played for Coach Staggs, didn't you?
Yep, played for Coach Staggs for 3 years. Bobby Hamlet, Bill Ezel, and Garner Ezel.
Yeah, Garner.
And
Sam, did you ever play for Sam?
didn't play for Sam. But that was the last year when I was a junior. That's when the teachers went on strike, and so we had to go down and practice on our own. So Coach Staggs couldn't come down, nobody come down. So Mickey Dunn was sort of overseeing our practices. So we were playing leapfrog and doing all the right stuff, and Mickey was so mad he can understand it, He said, "You wait till I get over and I'll tell Coach Staggs." So, but it didn't make any difference. We still did it, and when the strike got over, we practiced 1 week, and then we had our first ball game.
Now, Staggs, he developed some pretty good football players, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
He said, who was with the UT? How many went up, played for University of Tennessee?
Well, Steve Cohn did.
Steve Cohn did.
Yeah, Steve,
He had what was the guy that went to Georgia Tech?
Georgia Tech.
Louis Heller.
Louis Heller.
He sent some.
That number 22 was a magic number.
was a
around
magic
there.
number.
Everybody wanted to
Not
wear
only
that
in
number.
football, it was in basketball too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to wear number 22.
A little story on Coach Staggs. Coach Staggs was he was a unique guy. You wasn't going to tell Coach Staggs what to do. There was a couple guys in the back row one night on a Friday night, and they were complaining about Coach Staggs. They were real vocal. They were above everyone else about his play calling. And so long about the third quarter there, he done heard all he wanted to hear. So Coach Staggs just turned around and put his foot up on the fence and said, "Okay, you guys make the call. Say, we got the ball. It's first down." Well, he said, "Now come on, you got 30 seconds to make this call." Well, they don't make the call, so we get a flag and we move back 5 more yards. He said, "I'm waiting." So Coach Stagg took 3 penalties. And these guys got angry and got up and left the stadium. But Coach Staggs made his point. I've got 30 seconds to make a call. It may not always be the perfect call. But it's going to be my call. It's going to be what I think we ought to do. And Coach Staggs was that kind of guy, and he was a strong disciplinarian, and he wasn't going to have someone else telling him what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine that? You just talking about that and thinking of kind of college coaches that we've seen recently. That's almost kind of Saban-esque in a way that you just, hey, this is my team. Whether we're going to live and die by this play. And you're right. You only got a short amount of time to do it. But that's funny being able to tell a story like that.
He just told the two gentlemen, said, "Look, you make the call," and he waited. Well, we got, like I said, we got 3 5-yard delay of game penalties, and then he said, "Okay, then I'll make the calls from here." And then
I'm making my point, and my point is this.
And I don't know if those guys ever came back or not.
They shouldn't have anyway.
Yep. So from the coaching aspect, so I know that there's a couple of championship teams that I'm aware of in the Lawrence County area. Let's start off with the 1963 boys basketball championship. So who was a part of that team? And
that was at Loretto.
Loretto, yes.
Back then they had what they call the old 21st district. You didn't have Class A, Class AA, all these basic. Everybody played everybody. You were all lumped into one district. And the old 21st was probably the best district in the whole state of Tennessee, the most competitive. And you had Willie Hudson over at Savannah. He was recognized as one of the greatest basketball coaches in the state. But in '63, I was a junior down at Loretto. And I think Lawrenceburg had beat us twice during the regular season. We didn't play really well. Out of but how many teams? Do you remember how many teams was in that thing? Was it 14, 16 teams?
14, yeah, I think so.
I think we were like 6th place going into the tournament, and we drew the number 1 team in the district, which was Savannah, Willie Hudson, and we beat them that night. We upset them, and I mean, this is not something nobody's proud of, but that night after they lost, the coach went home and he had a heart attack and passed away.
Oh no!
Yeah, it was a dark cloud on everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody loved him. But anyway, we just kind of kept playing, and we kept winning, and we won the district. And first time in the history of Loretto High School that the men had ever done anything. They were famous for the women. Lawrenceburg men, the boys, was always dominant, and the Loretto girls was pretty dominant, that's the way it was. But we ended up winning it, and we got to the region, and we beat Bodenham the first game, and we played BGA the second game in the finals of the region. And BGA had just beat Lawrenceburg the year before and put them out, kept them from going to the state. So, boy, we were just excited. We just thinking, hey, we're going to do this. But we lost. We had our center that night. I think he missed 24 shots inside of the free throw line. He just couldn't hit. We couldn't either. So, hey, we lost the close game. But that was the first. Hey, matter of fact, the Loretto coach, I happened to talk to him yesterday. I was down there, and I was telling him I was coming up here to do this. He said, "Let me go pull y'all's trophy and carry it up there and show it to him." I said, I'm not going to walk in up there with a trophy. But he tried to get me to bring that trophy up here, and I wouldn't do it.
Well, talk about the impact that losing a coach in that situation. What was the mindset going forward with that? Because that's something that that's especially in playoff time. That's huge.
Hey, it was. Obviously it really impacted Savannah boys and fans more than it did us. Yeah. But I was talking to the other Mike Noblet. He was a guard. He and I were guards on that team, and I was talking to him this morning, and he was telling me about it. And he said, I thought about that before we played that next game. I said, we all did. Everybody thought about it. That's something. I mean,
you don't forget about.
Yes. You have to. You got to forget it, but everybody kind of thought, well, hey, we can't dwell on it. We got to go ahead and do what we're here to do. That's one thing about being an athlete. That most good athletes in every school, every thing, You take one play at a time. If you can put stuff out of your mind, you forget it.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to drop it.
Yep. Did y'all have kind of going off of that? Did y'all have any sort of impact, like whether not necessarily losing a coach via heart attack, but like coaches moving on, getting a new coach involved? How many coaches did y'all have to go through potentially throughout like high school or growing up?
I didn't go through any, except one.
Just the one.
Yeah, we as the athletic director there at the high school for 25 years, so I'd been through some coaches.
Yeah.
We had hired some coaches. Most of the time, we try to hire a coach with the intentions of him retiring there.
Right.
We try to hire the quality type person that would be great for this community, great for our kids, and great for our school, and then athletics comes next. Mm-hmm. So when we hired a coach during those 25 years, while Mr. Dunn and I were there, and Mr. Atkins, we tried to hire folks that were quality people, and seemed to be able to do that pretty good. But as people would move on because of money, getting this offer, that offer, moving to another state maybe, or moving to another county and coaching, we seemed to be losing a lot at that time to Murfreesboro. Murfreesboro had jumped their pay scale to an outrageous amount, and they were paying their coaches an outrageous amount. So we were losing coaches because of those reasons to the Murfreesboro schools. But in the early days, coaches came and they stayed.
Back in the 50s and 60s, you never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, coaches came. When they came to your community, they were committed to your community.
Yeah.
But, in today's time, coaches are more like, they keep their suitcase packed.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of ask that question.
I think the coaches today are like the portal today.
Yes.
The transfer portal.
Yeah.
Coaches are in that transfer portal just like the players are today.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to kind of ask that, because I know, even going off of, some of what my parents talk about because I grew up in the Huntsville area, so I went to Grissom High School, and knowing the history with Grissom and kind of that area, that was still kind of the thing where it's like you had coaches that coached football from like the early 60s, and they were still coaching in like the 80s. It wasn't just this, you're getting a new coach every, 5 to 6 years. It was, you're there to stay.
Yes. Coach Marston, who just retired from coaching, he had stayed with us over 25 years. So he had been there as a head coach for over 25 years. So that's the kind of folks you look for.
Yeah.
Is somebody that's come and wants to be here, the longevity. That's what you have. That's what you're after.
Don't you think the attitude of the fans have changed a lot too? They're not willing to forgive a coach near as much as they did back in the older days.
It's all about the W's.
It's all about right now. You either win or you're out of here.
It's all about the W's.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break here, but we'll be right back, and we're going to be talking about some more state championships and just kind of dig more into some of the history of Lawrence County sports.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
At Florida Mid-South Realty, we pride ourselves on our family values, professional service, and a deep local knowledge. With a small town feel and a personal touch, we're here to help you navigate the real estate process with ease. Whether buying, selling, or renting, you can trust us to guide you every step of the way. And don't forget to catch Florida Rockstars, our live podcast every Tuesday morning at 8. Florida Rockstars, rocking the real estate news and all things local. Florida Mid-South Realty, your hometown real estate experts.
Welcome to the newly remodeled Brass Lantern. For over 30 years, we've been serving delicious food to excellent people. Brass Lantern takes pride in authenticity, serving fresh, homemade food to please any member of the family. From mouth-watering to one-of-a-kind steaks served with gourmet marinade. to salad with our signature honey mustard dressing, specialty fruit tea, drafts, and much more. Our food is always prepared daily. Whether you come in with friends or family, you'll appreciate that fresh is better.
This is the xSports Network.
Champions in 96, 90 girls basketball state championship, 90.
Was that Loretta?
No, it was
That was
Lawrenceburg.
Mary Clayton girl.
That would have been
Mary Ann.
that would have been W. Smith's little girl. Katie Smith.
Katie
Katie Smith.
and Edward Saxon.
Saxon's daughter was the
Two
MVP.
kids.
Okay.
Yep.
They didn't win it when Mary Ann Clayton was there.
No,
Okay.
we didn't. We got beat.
Okay.
Chevrolet just happened to be the #1 team in the nation.
Yeah, there's a little shorty from Coach.
Rick Insler just happened to be the #1 team in the nation.
Yeah.
We, when we get some players like that go on, and Mary Alice went on and played pro ball in Europe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Girls basketball. She played pro in Europe.
Especially that early on, that was kind of like the beginnings of that.
That's
I
in
think
the early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah. Yep.
So she was fortunate enough to get to play at Tennessee Tech, and then from Tennessee Tech, she went and played in the women's pro league in Europe. And they put you up and get you a job, so she had a job in the bank during the day, and then she go play basketball at night.
That's cool. It's the life right there. Yeah. All right. You said we're rolling? All right. So let's do segment 2 in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody. We're, again, talking about the history of Lawrence County sports. We talked about some Loretto stuff, some early Legion baseball, Babe Ruth. Let's now get into actual Lawrenceburg and Lawrence County. So we'll start off with that 1964 state championship football team. So let's talk about how that team came to be, some of the big games, and just how all that season transpired.
Well, that year was a unique year for us because we had not experienced anything like that. Now I was a very young guy during that time, but those guys, Steve Frisbee and some of those, Lou Heller and some of those guys like that were on that team, and Coach Staggs had that team and made it to the Clinic Bowl with only one loss. I think they were 9-1 that year with one loss. I think Lincoln County was the only team that had beat them during the year and made it to the Clinic Bowl, and then got beat in the Clinic Bowl, I think, by Glencliff. So they had a tremendous team and a tremendous year, and pretty much set the goal, the standard. When you go and finish like 9-1 and make it to the Clinic Bowl, you know what everybody's expecting you to do from that point forward.
Yeah.
You get a taste of that. Everybody wants an additional taste of that, but you don't always have the type of athletes that you do. Every once in a while in a small community like this, they only come around every once in a while. So when they do, you got to make hay when the sun shines.
Yeah. I remember when, of course, I was young, and mother and Marty Hannah's mother worked for Dr. Davison. We go to all the ball games, and we were so excited to watch all them play. It's such good games, especially watch Lou Heller played. And I remember in the Pulaski game, they had a linebacker that went to UT. I can't think of his name, but
I can't remember either, Jay.
They ran several plays, and they started chanting over on Pulaski's side, "Give the ball to Heller, give the ball to Heller." And after about 8 plays, they give it to him. He went about 80 yards for a touchdown. No, they didn't say give it to Heller
They didn't chant anymore.
That was shut down.
And Heller went on to play at Georgia Tech, so he's still remembered around here by a lot of the folks that were fortunate enough to watch him play.
Oh, yeah.
He was extremely fast. This kid could run, and he ran with power, and he had great speed.
Well, he was also an excellent basketball player, too,
Yes, he
on the
was.
high school team.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Good bunch.
So beyond that 64 team, then you started getting the 76 Lawrence County baseball, and I guess they also played football as well, and that was one of the big teams here in Lawrence County.
Yes, that was an exciting year in baseball and football. And football made it again to the Clinic Bowl. Unfortunately, we had to play Maplewood, who they ended up with about 4 kids in the NFL. So we ran up against a team. Sometimes their X's are bigger than our O's.
Yeah.
And so we ran up against some folks that were just so much bigger, so much faster than we were. I was at that game, and they kicked off to us, and we caught the ball on the goal line, took 3 steps, and they tackled.
Yeah.
And so, it was one of those games where, you knew right off the bat, this bunch is for real. And they were, and they beat us. But our kids have played so well and so hard. You got Ronnie Harsfield was on that team. Jackie's brother was on that team. A lot of folks, my brother was on that team. Mike Weathers was on that team. Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson was a tremendous actor. Yeah.
Caught the touchdown.
Yes, he did. He did
night.
catch a touchdown that night. That was great to watch him do that. It was one of those games where you think, we may get beat, but you're still so proud of those kids for the way they played all the way through the entire seasons.
Yeah.
To watch a bunch of kids be so hungry. Junior Baker, who weighed maybe 135 pounds playing guard, and he's trying to block a guy that's 6'2", 225.
Yeah.
But Junior would get after him and stay after him, and he could, he's sort of like a doorstop. He'd just get in the way. To watch those guys, they were so tight and so well. They were just like an oil machine. Mm-hmm. And the thing about those guys is that they loved each other.
They're good athletes.
Yeah. So what about? So outside of that, the end of the season, what games kind of stood out throughout the season that were like, these are like the highest of high points for that team?
Well, I can't remember one game that really jumps out at me because they were playing so well. You got Lanning playing quarterback. Yeah, Rick Lanning, and you just to watch him play. And he goes on and plays ball in college. Back in those days, we didn't have a whole lot of kids that were signing college scholarships. Mm-hmm. I was away at playing baseball, but we didn't have many people playing college baseball back in that day. If you had 3 or 4, then you really had a special group. And this whole group either played baseball or football at the college level. A lot of those guys went on and were very successful, not just in athletics, but after they got out of school as well.
So it was just one of those seasons where it's like the whole season itself was just, that's a great season to just hang your hat on.
Yeah.
One game built right off of the next.
Yeah.
And you can say, hey, this team's going to be special.
Yeah.
You really don't know it when you play that first one, that second one, then you think, if we beat this bunch, this is going to be, they're going to be exciting to watch. And then finally you beat that one, and then you beat that one, and you think, hey, we're going somewhere.
We're going somewhere. You just keep going and going and going. Let's switch gears a little bit and go to we were talking about girls basketball kind of off the air. The 90, I believe you said it was about 96-ish girls basketball team for Lawrence County. Was that one of like the best early on kind of girls basketball teams?
First state championship. We did not have a banner until these kids came through. Melody Saxon, Katie Smith. These guys came through here and did an awesome job. They played well all the way through. During this time, you got to understand that Cheval was so dominant in basketball. They were not just a number 1 team in our district or our state. They were number 1 in nationwide. Nationwide in the USA Today, they were, and this group of girls came in and did an awesome job under the coaching direction of Willie Joyner, who's our principal now. Did an awesome job. And just, I watched them play the team out of Memphis, and they were, and I was fortunate enough to be down in the locker room beforehand, and the Memphis girls were sort of trying to intimidate our girls a little bit in the pregame. Down in the basement there, as we were getting taped up in the locker rooms and things like that, their girls were saying things to our girls, and I could see the reaction on our girls' faces. They weren't intimidated at all.
Yeah.
And before the third quarter, that team out of Memphis, who had tremendous athletes, quit. They pretty much quit on the floor. Melanie Saxon had a game of her life.
Wow. Yeah.
And she ended up being the MVP of the state tournament, and she should have been in Las Vegas that day because everything she threw up there went in. So it was one of those nights where, our kids were not going to be denied. We put the ball in the basket and just wasn't going to be denied. They couldn't even get it across the half court.
Yeah.
We were trapping them, and Coach Joyner did such an awesome job preparing them for that game.
What about from a Loretto standpoint? I know specifically, this year being able to watch some of the girls play, very good team this year. What are some of the teams that you remember kind of on the girls' side down there in Loretto?
Well, I know back, I think it's 55, maybe 56, they won their first state championship, and they've won a few since. But then, here recently, Loretta's been pretty dominant. The Weathers girls, both of them, they just took over down there, and they made the better. Carly, she's going to be a senior next year, I think, in University of Alabama. And I don't know where the other girl's going to go, but
I think
Freed
Hardeman.
She's going to Freed Hardeman. But they just took over, and they just like that. But aside from the girls, this past year, this boys team, I'm telling you, it was like you said. They knew they were going to win every ball game they went out there.
Yeah,
it was unbelievable. I was sitting there in the Murphy Center for the championship game, and they had to play Alcoa. And everybody didn't give. Florida was 34-0. They hadn't lost the game all year long, but everybody was betting on Alcoa. They ain't going to beat Alcoa. Everybody. And this fella sat beside of me, he was from Chattanooga. And he played football at Baylor. And he turned around and he looked at me and said, "Where are you from?" I told him Loretta. And he said, "What y'all's team that's 34-0? And I said, "Yeah, they're 34-0. I said, "They're going to be 35-0 at then." He said, "No way." And then when that game ended, this big fella, he was a lot bigger than you. He said he played tackle for Baylor University. He turned around, he looked at me, he said, "Y'all got lucky." I said, "No, we didn't." I said, "Those boys refused to lose."
Yeah.
And I mean,
you go back to some of the teams that they had back in the Jerry Taylor days.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, now,
Debbie White.
Oh, the girls' basketball was just, I mean, you could see it. That dominance has just been, all they're doing is just continuing on the foundation that some of these guys have done.
But Jerry Taylor was like, the Jerry Taylor Loretta was like the Leonard Staggs of Lawrenceburg.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody in Lawrenceburg just really worshiped Leonard Staggs. They loved him, and everybody in Loretta did the same thing with you.
Yeah.
They built the winning traditions.
Yeah.
I don't know how many
he set the foundation in the tradition.
I don't know how many state tournaments they won. I should have looked that up, but they've won quite a few. You know.
And Ashley does a tremendous job with the girls that she has too. I mean, she does a great job of preparing her kids, a great job, motivating her kids.
Ashley Helton was probably the best thing that happened to Loretta High School since Jerry Taylor retired and went on.
I agree.
She's a granddaughter of Mr. Billy Helton that just passed away not too long ago in an automobile accident. But I'll tell you, she is the best thing that's happened to Loretta girls basketball.
And she got to experience the state tournament herself. The team she was on made a trip to the state tournament as well. So Ashley knows what that feels like, and she sort of likes it, and she wants to take her team back every year.
Yeah,
it's one thing we have not mentioned, and all three of us in this basketball and the Lawrence County. You got to bring Summertown in too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I'm telling you, Summertown has produced some great athletes and championships and girls and boys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, talk about some of those teams, because you're exactly right. Summertown has had some pretty good teams in the past. So what kind of comes to mind when it comes to the northern part of the county?
The hardest thing that comes to my mind as a coach and as an athletic director and administrator and as a fan is playing in that gym.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You don't win in that gym.
You go in that gym. I can remember when Mr. Dunn was coaching the boys basketball team, and Summertown came to us first, and we beat them by 21. Wasn't even a close game the whole way through. Wasn't even close. We go up there, they beat us by 19. Gene McBee was the coach. So the difference in the two, and we're not talking about a long time. 2 weeks later. So you're not going to improve that much in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, they beat us on their home court by 19. That barn is so hard to play in.
That's their house.
It is their house, and it is difficult to play there, and they love it, and they pack it out.
I don't know if y'all remember this or not, but I coached up there 1 year. 1969, they hired me as boys basketball coach. They replaced Ralph Benson after he had left.
Yes.
Well, Ralph did a great job up there with his athletes, but They were all seniors. They graduating, and Ralph come to Lawrence County. He bailed out of there. He got out of there, and they said, "I didn't want it. I knew I wasn't going to be a teacher. I didn't want it, but." They said, if you'll just take it 1 year. So I did, and I went up there for 1 year. And he's, like you
I didn't
said,
know that.
hey, we won 6 games that year, and all 6 of them was at home game.
But Coach Benson was the last coach to take one of our high schools at Lawrence County to the state tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the gym's named after him.
And now the gym, you're talking about the Ralph.
Yeah.
The gym is named after him, and the floor is after Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Dunn.
I can remember a story on Coach Benson. That team that went to Memphis had John Norton, and John went on and played at Vanderbilt and did a great job up there. And so we go over there, and he's our key player. We got 5 great players, but he is our key that makes the whole thing run. And so Coach Benson's got this idea that we're going to run this and it's going to work. But this referee has called 3 fouls on John right off the bat, bang, bang, bang. Mm-hmm. And so Coach Benson calls the referee over and says, hey, look, you're either blind or you're a cheater. And so, of course, he's going to get his technical foul.
Right.
And we were down 2 or 3 points at that time, but that's what he was trying to do because he knew if he could get Bryant and Stevenson and that bunch of Cheatwood and that bunch going, then we would be okay. Al Lloyd and some of those guys, if he could get those going with that technical foul, we'd be okay. So Coach Benson had called him over there and got his intentional technical foul by telling the referee he was either blind or a cheater.
He got him fired up.
Yeah.
They were ready to play ball after that.
Yep. All right, well, let's take one more quick break, and then we'll be back, and we'll have more on just the incredible history on the sports here in Lawrence County.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the xSports Network.